All right, folks, coming up on Roland Unfiltered for Thursday, February 28, 2019, the last day of Black History Month, but I don't really give a damn because we celebrate Black History every day, so it really don't matter on this show. More fallout from yesterday's Michael Cohen hearing. Of course, the whiny, crying, red-faced North Carolina Congressman Jim Meadows says, I am not racist, and you can't call me that. So why in the hell are you a birther? Oh, yeah, wait till we show the video, y'all, from 2012 when he said Obama, he can go back to Africa. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Plus, we'll also talk with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, a member of the House Oversight Committee, about the hearing. The House also today passed a new background check bill that will close the Charleston loophole, referring to the massacre of 9 black people at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Congressman Jim Clyburn pushed that effort and spoke about the bill on the House floor. We'll show you his powerful words. Another former police officer on trial for killing a black man, this time in Florida. And once again, the cops' account of the shooting is contradicted by a recording of the incident. Wait until we tell you about the case of Corey Jones. We covered this when it initially happened. And this cop, off duty, killed his brother and made up all kind of stuff. And prosecutors say he is a murderer. Donald Watkins Sr., folks, is a well-known attorney in Alabama in the South, a legal scholar. But he is fighting for his life. Him and his son are on trial as we speak in Atlanta for wire fraud and bilking millions from various people. Charles Barkley testified today saying that he gave them $6.15 million and has lost it all. AL.com journalist Roy Johnson was in the courtroom today. He's going to join us live to tell us exactly the background of this case. And folks, you will be stunned. And Watkins, 71, his son, 46, they're facing a whole bunch of years in prison if found guilty. A school field trip has black 10-year-olds picking cotton and singing slave songs. White folks gonna make me cuss. Y'all, we gonna wait till we show y'all the video and we'll talk to an official in South Carolina who says this is atrocious, but it is South Carolina. And $23 billion, that's how much more is spent on white schools versus non-white schools in America. Black folks have known about these disparities in education for a long time, but $23 billion? We'll talk with the author who discovered this and other appalling facts about separate and unequal education in America. And today, our buddy Van Jones was at CPAC, and he actually said that conservatives now are the leaders behind the criminal justice movement. Van has a thing called the Love Army, where he believes in talking to people on both sides. I got a few love words for Van about this. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, Congressman Elijah Cummings, the chair of the House Oversight Committee, says he may be calling current Donald Trump organization executives and the children of Donald Trump to testify before his committee. When they do, they will paint a very damaging portrait of Trump or take the fifth. Not a good look either way. Of course, all of this was as a result of yesterday's testimony of Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who pretty much put him on blast and talked about his illegal ways and how he has run the organization and even the criminal acts he is actually engaged in as president. Yesterday was lots of drama, or even yet Congressman Mark Meadows of North Carolina, bringing out basically his black lawn jockey, Linda Patton, Trump's black friend, who's a party planner, who's now an executive in HUD, to basically prove he isn't racist. Well, that didn't sit too well with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence of Detroit. Here's what she said yesterday.
I just want to put on the record as being a Black American and having endured the public comments of racism from the sitting president. As being a Black person, I can only imagine what's being said in private. And to prop up one member of our entire race of Black people and say that that nullifies that is totally insulting. And in this environment of expecting a president to be inclusive and to look at his administration speaks volume.
Joining us right now, Brenda Lawrence from Capitol Hill. Congresswoman, how you doing? We're not, folks, we can't hear her, so let me know when we have her audio. Now talk again.
Hello, how are you?
There we go. All right, then.
Okay.
There we go. So, first of all, yesterday was pretty crazy. You had little crying Mark Meadows. You had, of course, him, like I said, with a lawn jockey, Lynn Patton. That's what it looked like, her standing right next to him as the Black prop. And you and the other Black members of that committee were not happy at all with what transpired yesterday.
You know, I when it was happening, I was sitting there saying, is this really happening? Did that just happen? And no one said anything as if it was normal. And so I was really, I couldn't hold it in. And someone told me, I've had a few of my white friends call me and said, we don't like being called a racist. I said, well, don't do racist things. The fact that you could bring a single Black person and use her as a prop. We have never, since I've been in Congress, and all the times that I've been following congressional hearings, I've never seen a human being used as a prop. That was inappropriate. It did not meet our rules. And then to say because her father was from Alabama, then therefore she's an expert on race relations, and because if she speaks, it is. I just had such a hard time stomaching that. And so my grandmother used to tell me something. She said, as a Black woman in America, Brenda, you're going to spend the majority of your life forgiving people and educating people when it comes to racism. And I just hope that that was a teachable moment for that body. And I'm so many people have responded, so I don't think I was the only one that felt that way.
Also, we also dealt with, though, Republicans refusing to deal with the acts of Donald Trump. They wanted to basically tear apart Michael Cohen, which I totally get. But this is the same guy who was the attorney for Donald Trump all of these years. And so they didn't care about the illegal acts. They didn't care about all the lying. They wanted to say, Michael Cohen, you're a liar. But yeah, but a liar was working for a liar, and the liar he worked for had him lying to protect him.
Yes. And, you know, remember, a broke clock is right twice a day. And I can tell you, Cohen came across as being very transparent. I lied. I have supported a man that did not treat people fairly, that he's a racist, a crook, and that he was very transparent. I'm no saint. And even when Miss Patton was they were saying that this woman was an African American and would she work for a racist? And he said no more than I should have as a victim of Holocaust. So I mean, it was amazing to me that you're going to whitewash all of those comments that Cohen said that the president said in private. Pretty much was what he says in public. I mean, the S-hole comment about Black African countries, he said publicly. He has publicly called Black football players SOBs. He has disrespected Maxine Waters. He has disrespected Farica Wilson and called them names. And, you know, I wasn't shocked. And everyone knows that the man has racist behavior and tendencies, and his language is hurtful. That if you are brown and from Mexico, you're a rapist and you're a killer automatically. So, I mean, the Republicans spent that whole hearing defending Donald Trump. they couldn't hear a word that Cohen said because their objective was to defend and deflect for Donald Trump. And we'll never get the checks and balances we're supposed to have in Congress and that we take an oath for. They do not work for Donald Trump. I scream it. You work for the people, and you're not doing the work.
Well, now the question is this here, and that is, do you want to see the Trump Organization associates and his children before the committee you sit on, the House Oversight Committee, to answer the questions that Michael Cohen laid out yesterday, some explosive charges?
If we truly are going to do the checks and balances, as uncomfortable as it sounds to bring the president's children, he has brought his children to the White House, made them federal government employees. He has repeatedly, in every story, used his son to perform tasks that has been deemed illegal. Do we have the right to ask the questions? Yes. If his children were not part of his administration, that would be off limits. I'm pretty strong on keeping family out of this. But he has positioned his children as policymakers, as part of our government, which makes them clearly a point of interest when it comes to getting the facts and the answers in this investigation.
All right, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence of Michigan, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. You have a great one.
All right, likewise. Chat soon. Folks, remember the crying North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows yesterday, who was just so offended that Congresswoman Tlaib dared say, oh, my God, that was racist. And so he's been running his mouth saying, oh, no, remember he said, I got the people of color who are nieces and nephews or grandkids, whatever the hell he was talking about. So why did they find this video that's been circulating on social media today? Press play.
And so what we're going to do is take back our country. 2012 is the time that we're going to send Mr. Obama home to Kenya or wherever it is. We're going to do it.
You know, I see it as if we do our job from a grassroots standpoint, we won't have to worry about it. You know what? We'll send him back home to Kenya or wherever it is. You know, we'll send him back home.
Send him back home to Kenya. Now, he claimed he was not racist. And then, of course, he was asked about that today. And he said, well, you know, that stuff did not necessarily make me a racist. Really? I'm trying to understand. How is it that that did not make you a racist? I mean, because remember, you were literally saying send him back to Kenya. I'm just trying to understand what is his point. Let's talk to our panel. Erica Savage Wilson, creator and host of Savage Politics. Dr. Julian Malveaux, economist, president emerita of Benning College. A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association, Political Action Committee. Erica, I'll start with you. I mean, it's real simple. He can go back to Kenya wherever he's from.
Quite. And then we also have to remember who Mark Meadows is. Mark Meadows is the chair of the Freedom Caucus, which is a group of House Republicans that are very much so dedicated to the base as they become to know Trump.
They so far right, they about to be left.
Absolutely, which would be a detriment to their soul. And so to add to this whole political theater, which he proclaimed was not an act, that this woman, Lynn Patton, who is a political appointee by the Trump administration for HUD, made an Instagram post on Tuesday concerning her being very disappointed in Michael Cohen and a picture of the two of them. That was picked up by someone within Mark Meadows' office, and then she appeared at the hearing with her statement appearing just about word for word submitted to Congress. So when he gets very upset and he's crying, what Congresswoman Tlaib said about this being an act, a racist act, absolutely marries well with his actions on yesterday.
See, it's real simple, Scott. I mean, if you were talking about birtherism, you were dealing with the issue of racism. That's what you were dealing with. Right. And so now Mark Meadows wants to, oh, no, that's not me. So what the hell was that?
But it's the height of arrogance of white privilege and white people in this country and the depth of ignorance. Let me unpack that very quickly. Look at Mark Meadows. He believes that if he puts a black woman up who says that Donald Trump isn't a racist, then that means he's not a racist, when the evidence in the empirical data says just the opposite. But watch Mark Meadows even more. He turns to have the chair defend him as his best friend. And because I got my best friend, who's a congressman from Baltimore, who's black as a chairman, that because we're best friends, that doesn't mean I can be a racist or be racially offensive. You can be both. I've met Mark Meadows. I've met him in the green room. He's a friendly guy. You wouldn't know that the racism bubbling below his skin and in his heart is there. And so this whole concept that one black person or one black friend is enough to make you a non-racist, why are white people in white America trying to tell us what's racist or isn't, and they've never been a victim of it? They're not people of color, and so they're the worst judges of whether they're racist or not.
Julian, in 2012 interview with Roll Call, this is what Meadows said. It was probably a poor choice of words on my part more than anything else. I believe he's an American citizen, but the fact of the matter is, you said it. You said it, you bought into it more than once. So, I mean, really, I ain't trying to quite hear all this.
You know, Scott's made a point that's very interesting. Racism wears an affability mask. In other words, no one is going to call, well, some people will, but very few people in 2019 are going to come up and call you the N-word. But they're code words. We'll send it back to where he belongs. Just code words. And
as long as they don't use the N-word, white America thinks they're on safe ground.
They think they're okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then Miss Lynn Patton, let's talk about that. I mean, a lot of people work for people in Alabama who are racist. I mean, I'm not trying to diss Alabama, but there are a whole lot of racists in Alabama, and people must have work. And
who know black people and smile at them. And call them friends.
Exactly. Right. And go eat, well, don't go eat at the house. That might go a little far. Won't go to church with them. That might go a little far. But the fact is that woman was used. She was manipulated. All they really needed to do was put a maid's uniform on her, except for the fact that maids in our history have an honorable history. 70% of all black women were maids in 1940. But she was, lawn jockey is a nice way to put it. There's some other things we won't say on television. What we must say is that this sister lost her religion, lost her face and her space. And then she went on Fox and said, oh, yes, she's so grateful to the Trump family. Okay, so gratitude and friendship are two different things. They took her from being a party planner and turned her into a HUD official. She used to be a party planner. And now she's a HUD official. Right. And so, yes, she owes them a lot. But she should not owe them racial loyalty. She owes them personal loyalty.
But you can be all that and still be racist.
And here's the piece.
I didn't say
Here's the piece. Mark Meadows, another piece is Mark Meadows offered no comment today to USA Today when it came to his birtherism video. And it's the same way. I don't give, what's her name, who can't speak English barely, the First Lady. Because she's also a birther. She went on television, Melania Trump, with birtherism. And Donald Trump, to this day, has not apologized to the Obamas for his birtherism. And so I ain't letting none of y'all slide on birtherism.
So maybe Melania should go back somewhere?
Hell, I don't know what. No, she need to go back to 2012 and damn issue an apology today. Because again, this whole deal is like, we should
whatever country she's
from.
No,
what I'm saying is Melania, the reality is he's from here, she not.
There you go, born here.
And the bottom line is that was operating on the issue of race, and that's what birtherism was. And so she hasn't apologized, Trump hasn't apologized, and Mark Meadows ain't letting you off the hook either. So you can sit here and cry, you be all red-faced and be all offended. I don't give a damn. And in fact, you wanted to retract the comments from the record there, but we got video of you, so I'll gladly wait to hear what you got to say next. Talk about the issue of race. Let's deal with Charleston, South Carolina, of course. Remember, 9 black people were killed at Emmanuel AME Church. Well, today the House passed a bill that might have prevented that massacre of 9 folks by that racist white supremacist Dylan Roof. Now, of course, it took place in 2015. Under the current law, if the required background check for a gun purchase is not completed in 3 days, the buyer gets the gun. The bipartisan bill will increase the wait period to 10 days. Opponents of the bill didn't want to inconvenience gun buyers. Oh, really? South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn, who is the majority whip in the House, spoke in support of the bill on the House floor yesterday. Emmanuel AME, of course, is in his congressional district.
I welcome into our capital today Ms. Jennifer Pinckney and her two daughters. There are the wife and children of Reverend Clemente Pinckney, who along with 8 of his Bible study parishioners lost his life to a demented white supremacist who said that he was interested in starting a race war. He entered their church, participated in the Bible study, which they welcomed him into. And as they closed their study that evening and prayed for what they had experienced and for their next meeting, this gentleman, while their eyes were closed, opened his and slaughtered them. I find it interesting that my colleague has talked about the inconvenience of waiting longer than 3 days to purchase a weapon without mentioning those poor souls. This was a hate crime of the first order. And we're saying we should not inconvenience him. And we did not inconvenience him. We allowed him to get that gun after 3 days, when it was around the 5th day that they found the glitch in the system and found him to be ineligible to own a gun.
So our panel, here's the fundamental problem here. First of all, we have seen the first gun legislation bill, gun control bill, passed in more than a generation as a result of Democrats now controlling the House. And if you look at those numbers, you now have Democrats who used to be in these, middle of the road, center right leaning districts who are also voting for this. And the bottom line here, Scott, how the hell can you make an argument you can't wait 3 days?
Because you can make an argument I can't make that argument if I'm in a red state or red district.
Actually, you can. Because damn it, you can wait 3 days.
You can, but they won't then. They won't because they want to get reelected. And the red state Republicans who have guns, who hunt or do target practice or kill black people, unfortunately, it's very difficult for them to do it. I'm reporting. I'm not evaluating or supporting what I'm saying. I'm saying this is how the mindset is.
But Roland, you know what? Between the Parkland young people and the presence of Lucy McBath on that Congress, you have impetus for this kind of legislation. So, if you already have a gun...
What happens when it goes back to the Senate then?
Well, I'm not talking about the Senate. Okay. Although you're absolutely right, the Senate is probably going to nix it. But what we see is basically momentum building to say every fool who wants a gun cannot have a gun right now. No one is saying you can't have a gun. Right. You just can't have a gun right now. As Congressman Clyburn said, what if they had waited the 5 days? This guy wouldn't have had a gun. And so you don't have an emergency need for a gun right this minute unless you have some ulterior motive. If you want to go hunting, you want to go fishing, surely one of your boys has a gun that they can lend you, and surely you can wait 10 days to go get a gun. So what we're really looking at here is, of course, the right-wing agenda of the NRA being revealed. But as I said, the Parkland young people have given this enormous impetus. They have been really focused. And the victory of Lucy McBath in Newt Gingrich's former district really does speak to the number of suburban white women who, on this particular issue, said enough. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to have them all the time and on everything, but with this woman and her compelling story, Jordan Davis massacred by a crazy white man who was intoxicated and thought his music was too loud. Right. Now, if I got shot every time my music was too loud, y'all will be having many, many eulogies.
But Erica, but this is where we stand, though, and this is the fundamental problem, is that what these folks have done is they have scared people to death in terms of you should support any type of issue when it comes to getting guns. And I'm sorry, you can wait 3 damn days. You can wait. I mean, it's all kind of stuff in our society that you got to wait for. I think you can wait for 3 days to get a gun.
Absolutely.
You can't get your passport right away.
Right.
You gotta wait.
And that don't even take a week. Erica, don't wait. No, Erica, go.
And so then to your point also, and then we also see how the Second Amendment continues to be drudged up, and of course the NRA with their powerful lobbying efforts backed by Russians continue to influence and push a narrative that waiting longer than the 3 days, which I think that they believe that that's too long, but the 10-day period would really allow for law enforcement and all these different agencies to do proper checks and balances, because had that been done, it would have been picked up that Dylan Roof had a drug charge and he was thereby ineligible to purchase a weapon.
What you're seeing now, absolutely because of Parkland, because of Santa Fe in Texas, because of Sandy Hook, you also seeing white folks finally get some damn courage on this. And I'm saying that, Scott, for a reason, because, no. I'm saying this because, again, the problem is when you talk about this notion of gun control, the reality is, and the Parkland students said it, the Parkland students have said that because they are young and white, they have been able to move this needle more than people of color. They said it.
Yeah, that's true, and I hope you're right. Don't get me wrong.
I am.
I hope you're right.
I am.
To be the case, you may believe you're right.
I am.
Look at Lucy McBeth's district, right? It was a very, very close race, notwithstanding everything you said and notwithstanding everything she said, right? So this whole idea that the country's moving, wait till that bill gets to the Senate, right?
Well, no.
When it gets to the Senate, if it passes, you can convince me of that.
No.
Is there progress? Sure, there's progress.
First of all, no.
This isn't a movement yet.
No. Hold on. 1 second. We can't ignore the reality that the Democrats added 40 seats in the House, and gun control was a part of that equation.
I agree.
Now, the Senate, of course, you still have Republicans in control of that. Yes, they are now about to see their lobbying effort, but we can't still act as if the numbers have not shifted, because we've actually seen a dramatic shift in the last 20 years towards more gun control, even from NRA members.
Those numbers haven't. Let me just point out. We've always had the numbers that said we want smart gun control.
Scott, there's a difference between 51% and 70%. That's my point.
Well, I don't think that's the 20% gap. I think those numbers, do you want smart gun control? Are you for gun control? The majority of Americans have always said that.
But there's a difference between the majority of Americans and a supermajority of Americans. That's my point. Actually, it does.
Okay, you feel good.
Go ahead, Julian.
But the other piece of it is that NRA hegemony is being broken up. We keep seeing these mass shootings, and as you say, Roland, this is not black people going in these places and shooting stuff up. We had a couple, but not very many. These are white folks killing white folks. There might be a black person hiding under the desk, and so you see this hegemony. You see white people who were heretofore Republicans saying, my child was shot.
Right.
I don't get to see my son's wedding or my daughter's, birth or anything like that. So you see people who are being moved, and they really are looking at the intransience of these Republicans.
Got it.
And they're breaking.
All right, folks. Let's not talk about what's happening in Florida. We covered this case when it first happened. That is, a former cop is now on trial for manslaughter in the shooting death of a stranded motorist, Corey Jones. Corey Jones' car was disabled, so he called for roadside assistance. An undercover Palm Beach Gardens, Florida cop, Newman Raja, approached the car. Everyone agrees on that. This is what he said happened when he talked to investigators shortly after the shooting.
I thought it was a disabled vehicle on the side of the road, or an abandoned vehicle. So I saw this vehicle and everything, and I was like, okay, I've got this vehicle on the side of the road, and I'm going to check out with it, make sure everything's okay. I didn't think there was anybody in there, and as I got close to the vehicle, and the door swung open, and this guy jumps up, and I immediately got out of the van, and he's like, I'm okay, man. And at which point I said, hey, man, police, can I help you? And the second I said police, he jumped back, and I clearly remember him drawing and pointing a gun at me. I saw that silver muzzle, and he had, I can swear on this, he had a Laser Max laser in the guide rod in the gun, and I saw that red light of that Laser Max flashing at me, and I immediately just shouted, "Drop the gun!" And sorry.
Let's do this. Take a deep breath.
I remember pulling the trigger, I think 2 to 3 times.
Here's what his lying ass didn't know. That when all this went down, Corey Jones was still on the phone with roadside assistance when Raja approached the car. Now, remember he said when he got near the vehicle, the door swung open? Now, check this out. The dinging you hear is the door open before Raja gets there. 7 seconds before he first speaks, he told investigators that he identified himself as a cop. Also, remember, he said he was not in uniform. Press play.
Is there any buildings, landmarks, anything like that that I could use to pinpoint your address?
Huh? I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Corey Jones was a musician who had his expensive drum set in the car. He had just come back from choir rehearsal. His family said he had a gun to protect his property. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, when an unidentified white guy comes up on you, yeah, you might pull out your damn gun. When the trial opened earlier this week, the prosecutor called Raja a reckless killer and an angel of death who at no time acted like a law enforcement officer, how they should be in helping citizens. But not only that, you remember also in this trial, the officer actually was coming from a different direction. So this guy's parked on the side of the road. This cop literally turns around, Erica.
Yeah.
And comes from a different direction to approach him. This Raja hunted him down.
Oh, absolutely, which is the unfortunate testimony of black and brown men and women across this country. And I will say to you that what is even more bothersome with the audio is that there seems to be some sort of just real comfortableness with law enforcement engaging black and brown folks using expletives. The way that he initially described that encounter to say that, you know, sir, how can I help you? Very diplomatic, the way that you would expect someone who operates off of taxpayer dollars, who serve the people, to engage, that wasn't it. So he literally raised his voice. He provoked him. It seems as though he got himself hyped up so that the execution that he was about to commit would then be justified in his own mind.
It still doesn't make practical sense. As a former prosecutor, this guy works undercover burglary. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, so he sees an abandoned car. What he really did was went down a ramp the wrong way at 3 in the morning because he saw an abandoned car. Now, you see an abandoned car, I'm undercover, I work burglary, it's 3 a.m., what am I, bored?
Right.
So I'm going to go out of my way to do this. You see that somebody's in there, right? You clearly don't identify yourself, so now it's mano a mano, right? 3 a.m. in the morning. He's dark-skinned, as this from the video, and this musician is on the phone. And he says, I'm good. He said, really? I said, yeah, I'm good. Really? Really? Get your
Hold up.
hands
So
up.
this is from the CBS 12 Twitter account. Y'all, this is what Raja was driving. That's the vehicle. Who the hell, if you are abandoned in a white vehicle, and also let's keep in mind, because we kept doing these stories, there were numerous times of people impersonating cops in Florida, rolling up on folks, stealing from them.
Right.
So you are aware of this at the time in Florida.
That's why he had the gun. I mean, as they said, he had an expensive drum set. He was coming from choir rehearsal, whatever. He knew that he needed to protect himself. This Roger, whatever his name is, he needs an Academy Award because that acting job.
Oh, the crime, that bullshit.
It didn't convince me.
It didn't convince me either, but obviously he needs an award because it convinced somebody. It didn't convince enough people to convince somebody. As Erica said, this is a pattern in practice of a tax on our people.
Yep.
And even if we could justify it, we can't justify any of it, but the use of the F word, the aggressive language, really suggests that he was not trying to help. He was trying to start some stuff.
That's all he was trying to do. All right, folks, I'm going to a break in a second, but I want to do this here real quick. I got to tell you about another trial that's happening, which is actually shocking to a lot of people. Donald Watkins Sr. comes from a well-known family in Alabama, an historic family. His father, Levi Watkins Sr., he was longtime president of Alabama State University. Donald Watkins Sr., a prominent attorney there, not only with his law firm, but also owning other businesses. His brother, the late Levi Watkins Jr., a historic heart surgeon at Johns Hopkins University. In fact, he and another doctor became the first to install a defibrillator in someone's chest. And so I met Levi Watkins, amazing guy, died 4 years ago. But this story is stunning in that Donald Watkins Sr. and Donald Watkins Jr., his son, are on trial right now in an Atlanta federal courtroom for bilking millions of dollars from investors, including a number of athletes. Donald Watkins Sr. and Jr. have been charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire and bank fraud. Basically, they are charged with taking loans and investments from people for specific business purposes and using the money for themselves, paying off alimony, American Express cards, going out to eat. It's been a crazy trial for the last week or so. Condoleezza Rice, the former Secretary of State, she has testified, also along with Martin Luther King III. Donald Watkins Sr. approached both of them to serve on the board of directors of this company that he said he bought a 50% interest in, when in reality, he did not. The family still maintained that he was simply managing those assets. Today, though, the big witness was Charles Barkley, of course, the Hall of Famer. Barkley testified today that over the course of several years, he gave Donald Watkins Sr. $6.15 million to invest in this particular business. He has not gotten a single dime from that. Riveting testimony today. Roy Johnson, a friend of mine, columnist for AL.com. I was following his Twitter feed, retweeting. He was live tweeting the trial. Roy, you were in the courtroom. You have previous history with Charles Barkley, co-authoring a book with Charles as well. And again, so before we get to today's testimony, set it up because, in Alabama, in the South, Donald Watkins Sr. is a legendary trial attorney.
He is certainly one of the most noted attorneys of any color, of any race in this state, and is most noted for being the attorney who was able to get Richard Scrushy off in a high-profile trial several years ago. He moved to Atlanta and has lived various places, but there's very few people in the state that do not know Donald Watkins, do not know of his family and his legacy and his children, who are very successful in their own right. And of course, he is on trial with his son, Donald Watkins Jr., who is also charged with those same crimes.
I remember 15 plus years ago, almost 20 years ago. Matter of fact, I remember, I think when you were the founder of Savoy Magazine, I was a news editor, I think we did an article on Donald Watkins. Remember, he was talked about, people were saying he was a billionaire. He was looking at potentially buying an NFL team and a baseball team. Yet when you look at this testimony that we've heard, it basically says, look, these guys were broke as hell, borrowing money left and right, paying for all kind of stuff, and that, he had this whole deal. Hey, he owned the bank. Then we hear that issues with the bank. He says, I wasn't even getting paid. Then he says, in this case, that he bought 50% of this waste company. Now, based upon testimony, we now see he didn't own any of it. He was just simply managing it. I mean, it is stunning to literally listen to this. And Watkins is him and his son representing themselves. I guess they don't have any money for an attorney.
This house of cards unravel publicly in this trial. As you mentioned, details of some of the charges on an American Express card that was paid in part with Barkley's money. We saw Hermes, and also saw charges to a communications company that went to pay for billboards to advertise Donald Watkins Jr.'s State Farm Insurance company. Just all kinds of crazy items that Barkley said he in no way would have approved. And as you said, it's just peeking behind the curtain of what many thought was a man who was worth billions. Even Charles testified to that today, that he thought his net worth was in the billions. He was a powerful, well-known attorney who, as you mentioned, was talked about buying the Minnesota Twins and building a new stadium, talked about buying part of what was then the St. Louis Rams. So Donald Watkins has been front and foremost in some powerful circles for many, many years. And that was part of the sell. That was part of the draw which lured a lot of these African-American athletes to invest with him, as well as also, I think being a prominent African-American. I mean, certainly athletes are often criticized for not doing business with other African-Americans, for not hiring them, and perhaps not investing with them. Here's a case where I think he leveraged that relationship to perhaps get them to believe in him perhaps a little bit more than they should have, and certainly to not do due diligence. Charles testified today that he never read any of the papers that Watkins would send him, papers that he had his financial advisor sign agreements to loan money to Donald Watkins Sr. and his company that, for purchasing portions of that company. Today he said he was shocked, mad, and disappointed, but mostly mad at the things he was hearing as they were reading emails showing American Express charges and talking about the things that are alleging the things that Donald Watkins Sr. paid for.
What was it like sitting in the courtroom seeing Donald Watkins Sr. and Donald Watkins Jr. cross-examining Charles Barkley about them essentially stealing $6 million from him? I mean, it had to be surreal, them talking in a third person when there are emails that's showing where, hey, can we get another loan from Charles? Can we get this? Can we get that? That had to be crazy.
Well, every attorney you speak with will tell you that anyone who represents himself as a fool for a client, you're sitting there and it's almost like an episode of Tyler Perry's Have and Have Nots. I mean, the drama could not have been more scripted. And as you mentioned the word surreal, that was something that I tweeted today and texted with various friends. It was odd to just watch Donald Watkins and Donald Watkins Jr. Represent themselves and defend themselves and ask questions that, to many observers, perhaps dug the hole deeper for them. Of course, it's up to a jury to decide exactly between what they heard and what they're going to believe. But yes, it's very odd when you see anyone representing themselves, particularly in a trial that is as scintillating as this and revealing as this, and surprising and shocking to many.
Last question for you. Also, a former Birmingham mayor, Richard Arrington, has been given immunity in this trial. He also has testified. Surely black folks in Birmingham, in Atlanta, in Alabama, have to be shocked and stunned because they really look toward Donald Watkins as being a major, major success story.
Sure, shocked, stunned, and a little saddened. Anytime someone that you believe is a success, someone who is building on a legacy of their family, anytime you see that pulled back and shown that perhaps it was all a fraud, that is disappointing. And certainly to have the former mayor, the first black mayor in Birmingham history involved, he testified that he gave loans. He loaned almost $1 million to Donald Watkins and did it through Al-America Bank, which was the bank that Watkins founded. And it was just very disappointing and saddened that someone of that ilk, that historical figure, was brought into this. He was given immunity in order to testify, and he was one of the first to talk about how he was used in this scheme. And so we'll certainly see over the next few days, perhaps even tomorrow as we have closing arguments, how this is going to turn out.
So closing arguments are tomorrow?
Well, they're close. They had a few more witnesses this afternoon, so I think now we'll allow the defense to put up witnesses, so we'll see how many witnesses Donald Watkins and Donald Watkins Jr. Bring forth. But we expect that there will probably be closing arguments, not so much tomorrow, but maybe early next week.
All right, then. Roy Johnson, we sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot. We'll quickly go to our panel here. Scott, first you. Again, National Bar Association, Donald Watkins is very well known. I mean,
can't get much better than Donald Watkins.
Considered one of the, top
premier.
Yeah, and to be 71 on trial, and when you read the details of this, with the emails and the money spent and the money for alimony and for the girlfriend, and she said she got taken for $600,000
over a period of time.
I mean, it's crazy.
Premier lawyer who just happens to be black. By the way, not a great black lawyer, but an incredible lawyer who happens to be black. The stealing gets good after a while, and the more you get away with it, the more better it gets, if I can say that, more better. Okay, but let me just say this. This is what's striking about this is that it's not only they're defending themselves, But what's striking is it's a simple case to prove by the SEC and the government. You take the income, the bank statements, you compare them to what the money was spent, you look at the agreements, and then you look at the testimony of people who have never been paid back, the lack of ownership, you match them up, and it's just like a pathway to the top, right? So it's going to be pretty simple. Very sad, though.
Yep. Julianne, you want to make a comment?
I really did. This guy is legendary. He's absolutely legendary. But one wonders what role. I was reading some of the stuff, and he's tried to play the race card in some of this. He's talked about how some white people who had stolen money had not been prosecuted.
Irrelevant.
But he's been. I agree with you.
Here's the deal.
Irrelevant.
It's not just Barkley. Damon Stoudemire, former NBA player, his wife testified more than $1 million. Another brother who was the first Sierra Leone football player, $1 million. I mean, so
this is black people ripping
these
off
are
black people,
folks.
and that's what I want to say.
And they tried it in Sierra Leone. They tried.
No, they ripped off a developing country.
Right.
Sierra Leone, a developing country, offered to build something over there. So no, all I'm saying is that we have to look at this very, very cynically, very cynically, and say stealing is stealing. It has no racial lens.
Erica, real quick, go ahead.
Oh, and it's just a bad day for Donalds. From Hanoi to Atlanta, it's a bad day for the Donalds.
All right, folks, going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to show you the video of some black kids in South Carolina picking cotton. Yeah, there's actually video that also got a commentary about Van Jones saying at CPAC today that conservatives are now leading the criminal justice reform movement. Nope. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered in just a moment. Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. All right, folks, of course, we talked about the whole issue of getting healthy and well in 2019. Many folks are trying different reasons, different ways of doing it. One of the things that I did starting the year off was with the Dherbs full body cleanse. It was a great doing. It lasted 20 days, all fruit, nuts, and vegetables. And look, like I say, it was an easy way for me to be able to do it. A little tough the first few days, but also have a drink, a lot more water, all about getting stronger, getting healthier. And you have different reasons. Look, for me, it's all about getting ready for a golf season. That's what's important to me. I don't give a damn about the beach. And so I'm trying. Scott ain't got no golf game, so that's why he don't want to even have this conversation. Scott ain't got a beach game. You know that. Scott gonna wear that suit on the beach. All right, y'all. So out there, we want to deal with the toxicity, excessive eating, processed foods, fried foods, and all of that. What you can do is, of course, try the Dherbs full body cleanse. They have 27 different cleanses you can actually try as well. So we want you to do is, we want you to go to, folks, go to Dherbs.com, Dherbs.com. Use the promo code Roland when you check out. You can also call 1-866-DHERBS, 1-866-4-DHERBS, 1-866-4-DHERBS. And again, use the promo code Roland. Like I said, they got 27 different cleansers you can try, and also weight loss systems after you go through the cleanse as well. And so we certainly want to thank them for being a partner here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So again, Dherbs.com or call 1-866-4-DHERBS. All right, folks, let's deal with, I've been talking about this ridiculous video, of course. Yesterday, we talked about the First Lady of Virginia sitting there handing out cotton to black kids and on a tour of the mansion. What the hell is wrong with these white people? Okay, I'm telling y'all, we just might as well have a daily segment called Crazy Ass White People. Now, of course, we have this out of South Carolina, y'all. Ebenezer Avenue Elementary School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Scott don't want to see the video, but he's going to have to see it. Earlier this month, they sent a 10-year-old school kids to experience picking cotton. Not cotton swabs, y'all. Not dealing with earwax. Damn experience picking cotton. The kids were even taught a damn slave song with the lyrics. I like it when you don't talk back, make money for me. Play this damn video.
I like it when you don't talk back, make money for me. Make money, say money, 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 money. I like it when you don't talk back. I like it when you don't talk back. Make money for me. Make money for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it when you pick like that. I like it when you feel the sound. I like it when you don't talk back. Make money for me. Make money for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it when you pick like that.
Come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. I I can't watch that bullshit any longer.
Shouldn't have watched it in the
Parents at the school, no, because the people watching need to see it. Parents complained. The school at first defended this trip, but later apologized. Joining us right now, South Carolina State Representative John King. He said something has gone terribly wrong. John, I'm serious. It ain't that damn hard to figure out. You don't have some black kids experiencing picking cotton and singing a damn song called "Make That Money."
Well, you know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with South Carolina. Unfortunately, you know, I'm sad to even have to have this conversation, but it's a reality that this is something that happens not only in our school systems, but it's happening in the state capitol. And so this is a conversation that we're going to have to continue to have here in South Carolina because of the insensitive people that we elect and that we have running our school systems.
So they defended it initially. They defended it.
That is correct.
But then did somebody figure, what the hell is wrong with y'all?
And Roland, I am out of 13-member delegation in my county. I'm the only black and the only Democrat in the whole county. We are the fastest growing county and one of the fastest growing counties in South Carolina. And where this happened, it happened in my district. And I've been very vocal against it. I'm looking to other avenues. The sad part about it is at the end, the South Carolina NAACP has said nothing.
Say what?
The South Carolina NAACP has said nothing.
Well, I'm gonna have to make a phone call to Derek Johnson, the national president. Okay, we'll do that as soon as the show's over. What's next? Have you and others have said never ever to any school district have a field trip like this?
This has been, from my understanding, and I just found out about this when this happened and it was videoed, but this has been going on for years. I have put in a call with the superintendent. I planned on meeting with the superintendent, not only in that particular school district. We have 4 school districts in my county. 2 of them I represent. I'm going to have a conversation with to ensure that this never happens again, that we make sure that the parents know exactly what type of field trips they're signing their kids up for.
Yep.
That has not been told to family members as they sign these slips to allow their kids to go on field trips. Something else that I'm fighting in South Carolina is that our school districts, and I know that this is not something we're talking about, but they don't even observe Martin Luther King Day that we have made a state holiday and that is a national holiday. They use those days as makeup days, and I've been fighting it. I've been elected for 20 years, and I've been fighting that battle for the last 6 terms of my since I've been elected.
All right, then. Well, look, we're going to keep, like I said, I'm going to make that phone call to Derek Johnson and certainly have them weigh in on that. Representative King, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. I appreciate you bringing some visibility to this issue that is happening here in South Carolina. I ask that you all look at how we elect judges in South Carolina and how black people who are the most qualified are not being appointed to judgeships, because we are one of the only states in South Carolina that appoint judges. And a few weeks ago, a white guy was appointed to the appellate court who had DUI charges, and you had a black lady who was the first ever elected in South Carolina on the judge as a judge who has 20 years of experience, who was denied the right to serve on the appellate court.
And that's why we got our kids picking cotton to experience.
Exactly.
Representative King, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Very much.
All right, folks, real quick.
Well, I need to understand. I wanted to ask, well, what is the educational justification, of having that kind of
thing? To experience cotton.
No, there has to be the whole notion.
There is none.
I know
it's South Carolina.
So you can do whatever you want to do in South Carolina to our children?
The government's public statement said something else. The government's public statement said that we are not about reading books, that we're about innovation, education, and being as creative and technologically advanced as possible. This was their answer.
So this will go back to slavery.
And so we don't just do classroom and books. We get our students out in the field.
Right, in the field. You're right.
Reporting.
And Erica, and here's the
reporting.
piece. Okay. But here's the piece, though. This is the same state, a woman who lost in the primary, who's I'm going to defend the Confederacy. Absolutely. And then she said, well, my family really didn't own that many slaves. And then when they went back and checked, they found that her family was one of the 10 largest slave owners in the whole damn state.
For sure, because we built this country for free, literally. And the other thing is, in that video, which I definitely understand was very difficult to watch, that I made myself watch, you hear the white teacher saying, I can't hear you.
Right. Like,
say it louder.
Like Negroes
Right.
say it, sing louder.
Right.
I'm telling y'all something right now. See, look, y'all should be thankful I ain't got no damn kids. Cause I'm letting y'all know how that would have went down if my kids would. I'm just letting y'all know right now, cause I mean it would not have been.
Protest.
Let's just say wouldn't have been that congenial if that was the case. And so, but it's also a lesson. I gotta go ahead and say this right now. This is also a lesson to all y'all black folks watching. Y'all need to learn how to also tell your kids that if you are experiencing something foul like that, you will speak out, and I'm gonna deal with the repercussions later. They want to try to suspend you because what we cannot do is send our children to school and say, now, don't be disruptive. Now, right, don't act the fool in class. But if somebody gonna have a slave skit or have you experiencing cotton, that's when you say, baby, it's all right to go ahead and cuss your teacher out because that's just crazy. And I'm telling you, a whole bunch of us don't really press folk when it comes to that. I got another guess. I got to go to that next story. But I'm just letting y'all know right now, raise your kids right, because I'm just letting you know it would have been it would have been some furniture moving in that classroom. Just saying. I got to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this disparity, $23 billion between education for white kids and black kids. And also, a few words I got dealing with criminal justice reform. My man Van Jones spoke at CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, their conference today.
Something wrong with Van.
Didn't set me right. Van, you my man, but it didn't sit well with me. And I got some words for you that y'all need to hear. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. Roland Martin.
You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution. Black Panther Party leader Fred Hampton.
All right, y'all, HBCU Giving Day. The school of the HBCU is Bluefield State College. Bluefield State, of course, is in West Virginia. It is actually it's an HBCU, but it's predominantly white. And so you can support Bluefield State, bluefieldState.edu. All right, folks, calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders. Enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. The winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement the proposal. The deadline to apply is March 31st, 2019. We want you to go to FGB.Life, FGB.Life for more information and to apply. Ford goes further in our community, and we certainly appreciate Ford Cares being a partner here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, we talk about education a lot, not just colleges, but also what's happening in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And we know the whole issue when it comes to white schools and black schools. Well, a new study provides this real explanation. According to EdBuild, non-white school districts get $23 billion less than white districts, despite serving the same number of students. Now, let's break this thing down. Each mostly white school district spends $13,908 per student. Each mostly non-white district spends $11,982. Now you might say, oh, that's just only a couple $1,000. But the deficit, $2,226. But notice the white districts are above the national average and the non-white districts are well below. When EdBuild looked at the poorest school districts, the white district spent $12,987, just below the national average. But in poor non-white districts, They spent $11,500 per student, way below the national average, a deficit of almost $1,500. Now, again, we talk about institutional racism. This is an example of that. Here's the founder and CEO of Edville, Rebecca Sibilia, who joins us right now. Rebecca, these numbers are stark, and when you hear $23 billion, and then people go, oh, all our kids get the same education, this is proof that's a lie.
Oh, it's an enormous amount of money. So when you think about $2,200 per student, what that amounts to in a classroom is $44,000. So imagine having the opportunity to provide $44,000 more in a salary to a teacher who's serving a primarily non-white school district or a primarily non-white classroom. Like, that is going to fundamentally change the game for a lot of students across the country.
And when we talk about this, when we talk about funding, we're dealing with not just central office, but this goes to supplies, it goes to teachers, it goes to tutors, it goes to all other things that actually separates your high-performing schools and your low-performing schools.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the problems with the way that we fund schools is that it's a geographically focused funding system. So where you live is going to, in essence, dictate how much money your schools are going to receive. That's why we did this study in the first place. The whole point here is that school district funding represents the vestige of everything that we have done in terms of drawing borders around people. So everything from voting borders to housing borders, that is all being reflected in our school funding system because we fund schools based on property taxes and where people live. And so there's this kind of inherent and systemic issue that we have that we're just not fixing because we're allowing local communities to keep their own wealth. And so, you know, one of the things that was striking in and of itself to us is that about half of all students in the country are attending a racially concentrated school district. There are about 12.8 million kids that are attending a racially concentrated non-white district and about 12.5 million kids attending a racially concentrated white district. That is half of the kids in the United States. We still have a very racially segregated community as it comes to our schools. When you add on top of that the fact that we're funding them based on geography, it is inherently a system that is stacked against not just non-white students, but also non-white students living in high poverty areas.
So what's next? What do we do? How do we change this fundamental problem?
So there was a court case that I'm sure that your panelists will know much better than I do, but it was called Milliken v. Bradley in the Supreme Court in 1974 that basically, from our perspective, reversed a lot of what Brown was intended to do. And so what Milliken v. Bradley said was that if there was a school district border that existed anywhere for any reason, that the United States Supreme Court didn't have the authority to mandate desegregation across that border. So what that did is that they made those borders then sacrosanct in terms of how we could sort students across our country. The first way to actually start to undo this problem is to separate the idea that the American people have, that the ability to self-govern your schools also means the ability to keep your own wealth. Those are two things that we have inherently linked for some reason in our education system that are two fundamentally different concepts that we can easily unlink. You can still run your own schools, you can still elect your own board and your superintendent, but you can share your wealth with your neighbors. So that's the first thing that we need to do, is just as a society understand that that we've been conflating two issues that just don't match. I think the second thing is that we have to put pressure on the states to do what they're supposed to do, which is to guarantee the right to a quality education for all students in our country. And where there are funding disparities like this, they have to do a better job of filling in the difference. But when we're corralling 10,000 non-white students into one school district and we're allowing another school district to represent 1,500 white students, the non-white voices are simply being drowned out in the state legislature too. So this is really just kind of an inherently societal problem that we need to start fixing, and it starts with the idea that we need to be sharing our wealth. All right, then. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you for this study, and we'll keep pushing this issue. Thank you so much. All right, thanks a bunch. All right, folks, today the Conservative Political Action Committee opened their big conference here in the D.C. area, and Van Jones, of course,
was there to talk about criminal justice reform. This was part of that conversation today.
The conservative movement in this country, unfortunately from my point of view, is now the leader on this issue of reform, in that you look at Mississippi, a rock-ribbed, totally conservative former jailer is the governor there, Governor Bryant. Governor Bryant has cut the prison population and crime at the same time. Deal in Georgia cut the prison population and crime at the same time. Rick Perry cut the prison population, prison expenditures, and crime at the same time. Ohio, South Carolina, what you're seeing now are Republican governors being tough on the dollars, tough on crime, and shrinking prison populations and showing the rest of the country that it can be done. Now, my problem is I now have a conservative movement that, for libertarian reasons, for Christian conservative reasons, and for fiscally conservative reasons, is actually doing a great job on what should be my issue. This is supposed to be my issue. You are stealing my issue. So, so
they're welcoming you with open arms.
Keep going. Let me keep going. Look, I'm going to stay in my party. I'm going to stay in my party. But what I want to say, but take some dadgum credit for being smart. Take some dadgum credit for getting it right, and take some dadgum credit for showing that, listen, if you take some food, we had this conversation before.
Yeah, don't take my food.
I'm a socialist according to you. I should take your food. I'm just joking.
We probably don't want to go there either.
That's good. But listen, here's what happened, and you guys understand how this happens. We passed a bunch of laws 30 years ago, throwing the book at everybody for everything. And then we didn't look at it again. A lot of people didn't. It's just like when you get food, you go out to eat, you get a bunch of food, you put it in the refrigerator, look at it for 3 weeks, 6 weeks. You open that up, it doesn't look like food anymore.
All right, so let me unpack this, okay, or let me deconstruct this. I know Van very well. We've collaborated on various issues when the First Step Act was being looked at by Congress, when that was being driven through the House, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and others. I was certainly supportive of that because I agree with Van that when the people who are in federal prisons, there needs to be reform. Here's what he was saying, how I would have said it. First of all, he is correct in that you have Republican governors who have decided to step up when it comes to jail reform. 7 years ago, a top civil rights leader told me, where I was speaking at a banquet in the Midwest, he said that we have been able to move the needle more with Republican governors than Democrats, but you have to provide context. Why is that the case? It's because Democrats have always been labeled as soft on crime. Republicans have always run on tough on crime. And so as a result, if you were a Democrat who ran for district attorney, or you ran for a judicial position, or you ran for a state position as governor, you had to prove to largely white conservative voters that you were tough on crime. I'm born and raised in Texas. I remember when Mark White was running for re-election, and he was in a studio, and there literally were posters that were 3 times the size of him. And he was walking through, and there was all of these photos of largely black and brown people and a few white people. And they were photos of people who he said Texas put to death. This week, Texas will put to death the 560th person since the Supreme Court allowed the death penalty to be reinstated. Mark White was a Democrat. Mark White was saying, I'm a Democrat, but I can be tough on crime with putting in the death. And so that's the reason why you had Democrats who are running. You're seeing it right now, Senator Kamala Harris. Oh, how is she a criminal justice? Because when Democrats run for the Attorney General a district attorney, oh, what are the white conservatives going to say? I need to appeal to their votes. So here's what you had here. And we dealt with this issue years ago on my show, Washington Watch, on TV One. I had a brother who was on the show who was upset when I pointed this out about these conservative governors. And he said, well, they're doing this for financial reasons. He was making the moral argument. I said, bruh, it doesn't matter if you're making the moral argument, if they're making the fiscal conservative argument. If this decreases the number of jails, the people in prison, I'm down with it. See, that's what Van did not unpack. Now, Van said conservatives are leading the criminal justice reform movement. No, that's a lie. Conservatives have separated jail reform and criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform is a much larger umbrella. Now, Van knows this. He works with groups right now. He's the CEO of the group that they just launched with Meek Mill and Robert Kraft, who gonna need their help because he got charged with prostitution. So I understand his point. But the reality is conservatives are not leading the criminal justice reform movement. It is, in fact, progressives and liberals. It's black people and brown people who are actually leading the criminal justice reform movement. Because when you talk criminal justice reform, it's not just about jails and who is going to jail. It's also about the sentences that are being handed out in these state courts. It's about who the district attorneys are. It's about repealing the folks who are in jail on marijuana convictions. It's also about how we are dealing with suspensions in schools and the school-to-prison pipeline. Criminal justice reform cannot just be seen through the prism of jails. It's also bail reform. It's a much wider issue. And so when conservatives, when Republicans, as a national party, puts criminal justice reform in their plank, then we can talk about it. If you have more governors who go beyond just the fiscal reason for jail reform, then we can have the conversation. But see, Van, I could not be like you and sit in a room of conservatives and say they have been smart on this when in fact you still have too many Republicans who tried to block the First Step Act, who tried to block criminal justice reform. You still have the Senator Tom Cottons of the world from Arkansas. You still have Jeff Sessions who blocked it with DOJ. You still have folks who are putting these things in place. The reality is Bob McCulloch was thrown out in St. Louis and replaced by progressive Wesley Bell. Larry Krasner became the DA in Philadelphia. You, of course, have Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore. You have, of course, Amalia Airman's down in Florida. So you got black folks. You got now Justice Crusoe, former judge in Dallas, who's now the DA. You now have progressive-minded district attorneys who are starting from a position of we are not going to throw everybody in jail. This is my issue, Van. If conservatives are actually leading the movement, and I understand Trump signed the First Step Act and what he touted, but has Donald Trump reversed all of the actions of Jeff Sessions that he put in place when he became Attorney General? The answer is no. Has Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and Republicans reversed it when they said we're going to go back to private prisons? No, they have not done that. Jeff Sessions told his prosecutors to stop doing what Eric Holder said, and that is don't go for the maximum. He said, no, you go for the maximum sentences you can actually impose. And so I am not going to somehow say that conservatives are leading a criminal justice reform movement when the proof simply is not there. Just because a governor in Mississippi and a governor in Texas, and just because a governor in Kansas, they have made those decisions, and a governor in Georgia, they still are fundamentally have bad policy overall when it comes to criminal justice reform. The day when the Republican National Committee and Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate and the Republican Governors Association and the Republicans, all of their various groups, the day when they as a party stands up and says that we are fully backing criminal justice reform on every single level, then I will say that's what they're doing. But there's no way in hell I will say that and give them cover when the very people who are at CPAC are the same folks who are going to go home and do what they do. Governor Abbott of Texas, he needs to step up and pardon Crystal Mason, who was put in prison for 5 years for voting when she didn't realize she could not vote, and she lost her job, and she also had a family. Show me, please, when they are going to do more than just confront what's happening in jails. You had better deal with what's happening of throwing people in prisons, what's happening with juveniles, what's happening in high schools, and middle schools, and elementary schools. I am not going to give somebody credit for a small piece of criminal justice reform. No, you're going to have to do a hell of a lot more than that. Van, you my boy, but you wrong. And you were wrong for giving them that comfort. And what you should have done, Van, is challenge them to do more. What you should have said is, here are your marching orders. What you should have said, that if you are real and true about criminal justice reform, do this, 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 and this. The damage has been done because of conservative policies, and Democrats went along with that crap because they were scared to be called weak on crime. No, you are not getting off that easy, CPAC or the GOP or Trump. You got a hell of a lot more work to do than what you've done thus far. Final comment from our panelists.
I think you nailed it. There's not much else to say, but I will say one word.
Exactly.
I said because Willie Horton. Let's just see, but what has happened is these conservatives do racial manipulation to make people frightened of black people, and then the Democrats are supposed to be so soft on crime, as you said, and so they don't say anything. Willie Horton was an aberration, but Willie Horton was used to win an election. And we've seen cards like that played time and time and time again. And so Van was playing Mr. Bojangles for the white folks. I hope he was paid well.
Well, you know, here's the deal. I understand he worked with Jared Kushner and the folks put the First Step Act. He's absolutely right what those individual states have done. But again, that was largely jail reform. Republicans initially wanted jail reform. It was Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Cory Booker and Senator Dick Durbin who pushed them, saying, no, this thing has got to be broader than that. And I'll give it, Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, even said that's not good enough. But I'm not going to say without the proof, show me where they are leading, Erica, because I'm not seeing that. It's too many young folks and too many black folks and Latino folks who are in the streets right now. If conservatives are leading the criminal justice reform movement, I want to see when they march it in Chicago against cops.
Well, we won't see it, but we will continue to see commentary about Chicago. For that statement to be made next to Matt Schlapp, whose wife Mercedes Schlapp works in the White House, to crown conservatives, so to speak, as being kings and queens of criminal justice reform was irresponsible at the best.
Scott?
I'm still trying to figure out how you reduce prison population and reduce crime at the same time. Those statistics have to be checked. I'm not ready to crown them either, given their history. And I think you nailed it when you said, don't give them too much history. This was a financial decision, prison reform, and these private prisons that have been costing states all over this country millions and millions of dollars. And for what? To house these prisons and to build new prisons. And they used to argue that it was about the jobs, not about housing black and brown people. So I think there's even more unpacking to do, Roland.
And again, I will give you credit where credit has been earned.
Right.
But I'm not going to say they are leading the criminal justice reform movement, because that is not what is going on.
No.
And that First Step Act was about that big. Important, but it was that big. Remember, you had Democrats who wanted a much larger criminal justice reform bill. Republicans said, no, that's going a little too far.
First Step
just so we know.
First Step represents about 5% of what needs to be done, about 5%.
But also it's called the first step, which means, damn it, it's a second and a third. Show me where that bill is.
Exactly. I was about to say,
that's what I'm waiting
where's
on.
that pending?
That's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on. That's all I'm waiting on.
And what are they going to do about the killing fields of Chicago?
That's all I'm waiting on. No, I ain't going to use Chicago. What they going to do about
fields of DC.
What they going to do about all these different cities? Again, they are not leading the criminal justice reform movement. I'm not going to give folks that. But y'all can. Oh, no, you got an opportunity.
Just legalize marijuana.
Let's see if you do it. Let's see if you do it. All right, folks, we got to go. Here's the deal. Tomorrow, I've got meetings in New York. I'm not doing a show tomorrow. Monique Preston is going to be sitting in for me. We are going to be in Selma this weekend. So we're going to be live. So tomorrow we'll be talking to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. from Selma. And so on the show tomorrow. But in addition to that, after our show tomorrow, Mark Thompson, he's actually leading a town hall that's taking place there at a Baptist church in Selma. We're going to be live streaming that. We're going to be streaming events all weekend. This is the Jubilee there in Selma that commemorates Bloody Sunday. And so Sunday, we're going to have the commemorative march across the Selma Bridge. We'll be bringing that to you live as well. And so we want you to tune in, retweet it, share with people. And folks, this is why we want you to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, because the reality is this. There ain't no other show like this one on cable news, broadcast news, in the digital space as well. It's a bunch of people out there talking to a camera, but that's not called an actual show. And so we're actually covering the issues that matter to us and bringing news and information to you that are not being covered anywhere else. I'm going to be real clear. Obama not going to be in Selma this weekend. Trump not going to be there. So you know what that means? Mainstream media cameras will not be there. We're going to be bringing you black folks who are talking about the issues that we care about, looking forward to 2020. So we want you to watch all of our coverage this weekend. Do me a favor. Go to YouTube, go to Facebook, go to Periscope, set your live notifications so every time we go live, you get an alert. We also want you to support what we do. We want you to go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Next week, we're going to be telling you about some different discounts that you can get as a member. 20% off anybody who members of our Bring the Funk fan club for items that we're selling. I'm going to show you what those are going to be next week. And so that's why you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club. And so, folks, it was an absolutely great day. Erica, Scott, Juliana, I appreciate it. I want to thank all our guests as well. Folks, don't forget Amber Evans, the sister in Columbus, Ohio. She is still missing with her mom on yesterday. If you missed that interview, go to our YouTube channel to watch the interview. We got to find what happened to that sister, whether she's alive or unfortunately she's passed away. Her family wants her body returned home, and so we want to keep supporting that as well. And so I'll see you guys Monday, but don't forget, we still got a show tomorrow. And this weekend, we're also going to have our encore, my interview with Spike Lee. Of course, he won an Oscar for Black Klansman, but you got to see the conversation we had before the movie came out. Y'all have a great one. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join the fan club. Holla!
That's your mark.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.